Okay, so welcome back to Digital Wandering. And today, as you see through the title of this video, I want to bring to you the Ubuntu Touch operating system and my experiences with it. I've shown a lot of different mobile operating systems on the channel. The main ones, iOS and Android. I also show Windows Phone and Amiga. So this is the fifth mobile operating system, Ubuntu Touch, that I've shown on the channel. Many of you may have heard of Ubuntu on the desktop, the Linux distribution, and I don't know if some of you may have used it. I've used it a little bit. At one time, the organization that supports the desktop operating system, they decided to come out with a mobile operating system several years ago. But they dropped the project. I guess it didn't get enough traction. It wasn't a money maker for them. So they discontinued it, but now it's supported by an independent organization of developers, volunteers. And I will post some links in the description so that you can easily find additional info on this operating system. But I've been using it for a while now. This is a Nexus 5 from 2013. Below here we have a Nexus 7 also from that same year. And the Nexus 5, I actually got this to run Ubuntu Touch. So it didn't really run Android at all. I've been using this for about a month. The Nexus 7 I got back in 2013, and it's one of my favorite tablets. And I think the only Android tablet I ever got. I love the 7-inch form factor of it, and I used it for many years under Android while it was supported from 2013 to 2016. After that, I didn't use it as much, and then it started to really, I think about 2018, I started having trouble with it on Android when I would take it out of storage, power it up, and try to use it. There was all types of issues like ghost touches and all types of stuff. So it was like pretty much unusable. So in 2019, I put Ubuntu Touch on that device. But I only really been using Ubuntu Touch a lot like the last few months. And is it a good replacement? Is it a competitor to Android and iOS? Well, yes and no. It depends on you as a user. Just talking about the strength of this is that the core apps that you get with Ubuntu Touch are fairly functional, and they get the job done. So all the core apps, as far as for communication, the camera, web browsing, all the major categories and services and uses of a mobile operating system are here. So you can use this as a daily driver if you want to. And I think it gives you a full experience. I mean, in general, I always say any smartphone is good, even an old smartphone, a cheap smartphone, or a flagship. That you can get value out of all of them. And this is a functional operating system, and it's still underdeveloped to this day. So that kind of gives it advantages over things like Windows Phone, which are still extremely functional, but are no longer under development. So if it's important for you to have updates on your device, this could be a good alternative. If you're a Windows Phone refugee who doesn't want to go to iOS or Android, this is an option. And there are some things that remind me of Windows Phone on this a little bit. And not so much the UI, but just certain situations. I'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, so the core apps are fine. If you're someone who, I guess, values privacy over all else and you don't trust Android, Google, or iOS, Apple, you don't trust those mega corporations, then this might be a great compromise for you. So privacy is a big reason why to use one of these Linux phones like Ubuntu Touch. There's other operating systems out there other than Ubuntu Touch, but It seems like this is the one that's the most functional today, but the others are improving all the time, and I haven't really used them. I've only had experience with them through looking at videos on YouTube. But who knows what the future may bring. So yeah, this is very functional. You do get apps. The app universe here is very small. It might be around 1,000 apps available for this. One thing good about that is that you can really get in touch with or experience as many of the apps as you want to on this platform. You can actually go through all the apps and review all of them and see which ones are useful for you, which is impossible to do on Android. It's impossible to do on iOS where there's millions of apps. It was even impossible to do that on Windows Phone. I mean, you really depend on people like tech reviewers, like on YouTube, or tech writers on different web news sites, tech sites, to really find out about new killer apps that are out there that otherwise you wouldn't be able to find because the app library is so huge. On these devices, the app on this device or this operating system, Ubuntu Touch, the app library is small enough that you can go through the entire thing yourself. And you can do that. You don't have to have an Ubuntu Touch machine to do that. You can go on the web. I'll try to post a link down below that will show all the different, where you can look through the App Store and see all the different apps that are available on this machine. One thing good about the apps here are they have a really small footprint, and so they only small number of megabytes. They're not as big as the apps on Android as far as size. So they take up a lot less space as far as your internal storage. So that's one major plus about the apps, and it's almost like apps on the if you've been using mobile apps for a long time, like in the beginning. I remember my iPod Touch back in 2007 or so. The apps didn't take up a lot of storage space. They were very small. So this kind of reminds me of that, the apps in the earlier days. It's also like that on the desktop too. Desktop apps, when I am on my iBook clamshell, I have apps on there, and they take up very little space. The apps that are compatible with those old operating systems, that's on iOS 9, or excuse me, not iOS 9, Mac OS 9, and the apps take up very little space. So this reminds me of that, and also this operating system works on old Android phones for the most part. So if you have an older device, like I had the Nexus 7 from 2013 that was sitting in storage, so I was able to add Ubuntu Touch to that device. So it didn't cost me anything extra to use Ubuntu Touch. I was able to use one of my existing devices, and there's a list of devices on the UBports website that supports Ubuntu Touch. I'll try to have a link of that website or web page in the description, so you can look through that, and maybe you might have one of those devices. You can try to flash Ubuntu Touch to that device so that you can utilize the operating system at no additional cost. This one I had to get to, I got this to use Ubuntu Touch, and Nexus 5 is the most common device that you see people demoing Ubuntu Touch online, and it seems to be one of the core devices for Ubuntu Touch. So it's the most common. They are very affordable online, although you will see people charging, or I think overcharging. I mean, the phone is 8 years old now, but so there are cheap ones you can find, but there's also ones that I think are overpriced. So you just have to check and see what's available. If you check long enough, you'll probably find one that's a price that's attractive to you. So for all those reasons, I think it's a good decision to use these devices. Where are the shortcomings? Well, we just talked about the age of this. I mean, it is 8 years old for the Nexus 5. There are some younger devices that people are testing Ubuntu Touch with. One of the things is that it can be unstable on certain devices. So it's a long list of devices that people are porting this operating system to. But you have to check and see what works and what doesn't. Like on the Nexus 5, for whatever reason, the included media player, the default media player doesn't work on the Nexus 5. All the video media that I try to play on that, it doesn't work. It works fine on the Nexus 7. The Nexus 5, the camera, let's just open that up. I was really surprised about the camera here. I think it functions pretty well. And basically this device doesn't have the software processing that you would find on a iOS or Android device, especially a more recent release. But it does function very well just using the physical components of the included camera here. I think a lot of the results are very satisfactory to me. And this is the photo we just took. And let's try to go to the app switcher here. And this is how you would close an app, just like that. Now that camera works on the Nexus 5, but the camera doesn't work on the Nexus 7. If you go on to, again, go to the UBports website, there's a community section with a forum, and there they have different forum threads on the different devices that people are porting Ubuntu Touch to, and you can get a sense on what's working and what isn't. The app situation, I talked about the good thing about the app situation. The bad thing about the app situation is that there is going to be a lot of apps that are just not available for this device. It's only a small number of apps, 1,000, as opposed to millions on the major platforms. So a lot of things are just not going to be there. Certain web services, you're not going to be able to use on these devices. Especially if that web service requires a functioning app. There won't be a functioning app more often than not here. Some web services you can access through the web browser. The web browser here is the Morph browser. It is pretty decent. I think this gives strong marks on web browsing. You can access pretty much most sites you want to access through the web browser. You'll be able to access. It depends on how deep you go to. Certain layers deep, it may not work. As far as certain web services that require maybe desktop operating system like Edge, Chrome, or Safari on the desktop, or is only compatible with like mobile versions of Safari or mobile versions of Chrome. It may not be compatible with the Morph browser. So that is one issue. Like sometimes you can get around the fact that you don't have an app. You can go through the browser and use the web service, but in certain cases it may not work. I'll give you an example like Spotify. There is an experimental Spotify app here, but it's not available in the App Store. You have to like go to GitHub or something to download it. And you can't really access it through the browser. There is a Pandora app that you can get through the App Store. Now this is the similarity with Windows Phone with apps that you find in the App Store. There is a lot of unofficial apps. So for example, we have a YouTube app here, but this is not the official YouTube app. This is let's try to open it again. This is an unofficial YouTube app. So this is what is very similar to Windows Phone. Well, Windows Phone had a lot of unofficial apps. Let me just make sure the volume is turned down here. So it's very similar to the experience on Windows Phone with the unofficial apps. See if we can make that full screen. And there you go. So YouTube is functional. One issue you're going to have is with streaming services. So that's one app service that I can't go into in detail. There's not going to be a lot of streaming services. It's not going to have the variety that you have on iOS or Android when it comes to streaming services. So although we do have YouTube here, Netflix will not work on here. There's no Netflix app, and you cannot access Netflix through the browser. Also, Hulu I don't think works. I tried that and wasn't able to get it to function. So many of the major streaming services will not work. There are other streaming services that you can use. Pluto TV will work. I think I have, yeah, here we go. It's a little clunky. And what you have to do with these streaming services, if this is important to you, I think you would have to, okay, they're showing, let's see if we can get this to work. It's still loading here. This is the movie Memento, which is extremely famous and for good reason. It's a really good movie. So Pluto TV works. Let's see what other. It's a short list of, let's see here. It's a little easier for me to pull it away from the camera to pull up stuff fairly quickly. Let's see, I'm looking for Tubi. Tubi, the streaming service. That should work. Last time I tested it. Let's see if we can make this go full screen. So there you go. This is Wind Talkers. Look at this. I just paused it. Let's unpause it and keep it going. So trial and error. What I've figured out here is that the streaming services that do not require you to sign in to use them tend to work. I mean, that seems like that's a simple rule of thumb. The streaming services that you can you can use without an account, that you can just pull up a video, press play, and work. Where streaming services that require an account tend not to work on this platform. And I don't think it's so much that they require an account. I think they just have some proprietary aspects of how they stream videos that just doesn't work on this web browser, on this device. So, you know, if you want to have the most compatibility with web services and websites and different things available on the internet, really you have to go with the major players. So you have fewer issues. So that's going to be Apple. That's going to be Windows, and that's going to be Google. If you go outside those three major players, you're going to run into issues with things potentially not working. You have games on here. Now the gaming situation, this could be a make or break thing for certain people, because the gaming situation is not going to be the same as it is on Android or iOS. It's just because they don't have the gaming library. The games are going to be a little bit more simple. This works very good for me because I'm not much of a gamer, so I need games that are going to be simple, that I can just pick up and play. When the advanced games, I can hardly play them. I'm just so much of an inexperienced gamer that I just don't have the ability to even function in the game, to move the character around, to do simple things like walk and run. It's just so hard. The simpler games that you find on here are much more my speed. I like games, but I just never put too much time and energy into it. So it's a very weak part of my usage. So I need simple games that I can just play fairly easy. So games like this work perfectly for me. And forgive my let's get out of here. I cannot play by looking through the camera screen. It's just, I mean, I'm 10 times worse. All right, so yeah, there's a lot of good things. Messaging apps, you're not going to have the same variety, but as I mentioned previously, the different categories are covered. You will have a messaging app that will work through your phone provider here, but I don't have a SIM card in here. So they do have an unofficial Signal app and an unofficial Telegram app that you can use. There's also Fluffy Chat that also will work on this platform, and it has an official app, Fluffy Chat. Fluffy Chat. My God, that's hard to say. So the experience is strong. If you compare it to Android and iOS. Now, I do want to say that Ubuntu Touch, I've only been using it a lot for the last month or two, but this Nexus 7 I put on an Ubuntu Touch back in 2019, and I didn't use it, but I don't even think I used it for a week. I just didn't like the operating system at that time. I tried to use it, and what I was doing is I was comparing it to iOS and Android. So everything, I'm comparing the browser to the options I have on iOS and Android. I'm comparing the music app. And the music app actually is pretty good. I think that holds up very well with the options that I've used on iOS and Android. But you know, what app? The camera, you can, like, the camera didn't work, you know, on this one, on the Nexus 7. Where it will work on any of my Android phones or iOS. What is another app that, there's another, I'm trying to think of another app. The gallery app, the photo gallery app, the music player. You know, like I'm saying, I have issues with the music player on the Nexus 5. And even though it works on Nexus 7, it's just not the same experience. And actually, not the music player, the video player, excuse me, the media player on the Nexus 5 doesn't work, but it works on the Nexus 7. So I'm comparing those to Android and iOS, and this is not going to, if you compare it to Android and iOS, it's not going to win that comparison. You have way more app choices on iOS and Android. You have way more choices of devices. These devices are fairly old, so you get the latest and greatest if you go with Android and iOS, the best cameras, the more powerful machines. These machines are rocking 2 gigabytes of RAM. Newer Android phones are going anywhere from 6 to 12 gigabytes of RAM. So if you compare it just on a checklist, these devices these devices and this operating system won't be able to compare to it. So you really have to use it on it. You have to just judge this on its own merits. On its own merits, these are excellent devices and excellent operating system, and it has its own reasons to use, especially if you are concerned about privacy. I think that's a major thing, and you want to support a third player in the mobile operating scene, because I think this is really maybe the strongest third player right now. You have this and not much else really that can really hold up a third option for the public. And as long as there is something out there that we can actually utilize, I think it's worth supporting on some level. And based on what it can do quite a bit, and I think it's a worthy choice if you're just not happy with what Android and iOS has to offer. I think it's really strong. I'm using this pretty much every day, along with my iOS and Android devices. I'm just too much of a person that likes to utilize multiple different devices. I'm using these. I'm using Windows Phone. It's crazy. I'm using so much stuff all at once. So I think sometimes I miss out on the full experience. And one thing I did forget to mention here is that there is a feature on this device, or actually two more features that I do want to mention. One, we're talking about access to apps. You can use Android apps on this platform. There's a service called Andbox, which is like Android in a box. And I guess it creates a container that you can run an Android app in, and it will work on this platform. It's only available for a small number of phones that you can port the Ubuntu Touch operating system to. One of them is the Nexus 5. I think the OnePlus One is another one. And there's a couple of more that I'm not as familiar with phones off the top of my head. But utilizing that service, you can install Android apps on here. That opens up the world of Android apps to this operating system. So if you're someone that you're stuck on Android because there's a few apps that you cannot do without, if you're able to activate that service on here, you'll be able to install Android apps. I haven't done it. There is instructions for it online. The instructions state that only advanced users attempt to activate that on the device. The instructions seem to be fairly straightforward. I haven't done it. I've heard people say that Android apps actually, once you get everything installed, they do work fairly well. For whatever reason, there's not a lot of people demoing Android apps that I can find on YouTube. I've only seen a few videos. There's one video that's not in English, and then there's another video that's very well made, that's promoting this operating system, that does talk about the Android apps aspect of it. So that does open up a whole new usability of these devices by unlocking Android apps. I think it'll get a little strange if you use Ubuntu Touch and you have nothing but Android apps on there. If you activate that, because I think at that point then you're making the case for why don't I just get an Android phone or one of those de-Googled Android phones as my main choice for mobile operating system. But I think it does serve value. It serves value for someone that might need to use one or two Android apps. So I think that's an excellent thing. You can also use some of the desktop apps for Ubuntu or Linux distros, I guess. I only have one desktop app on here, so that's something I did make use of. I have Firefox here, Firefox web browser, and that's the desktop version. And it doesn't really run well at all. It's very slow. It's not responsive, so it just doesn't function. The idea is that this gives apps that are this gives it just increased usability, the ability to run desktop apps. I'm assuming that there are some desktop apps that will run well on here, but the Firefox browser is not one of them. It's just not functional. It will seem to be more functional on the Nexus 7 than it was on the Nexus 5. Nexus 5, it was almost unusable or close to unusable. Here it was very slow and hard to use, but I could open it up. That brings it up to another thing. I did mention that there are certain things that work on one device and not on the other. Each of the port of Ubuntu Touch, or each version, there's like different code names for them for the version of Ubuntu Touch that works on the individual device. And so there's different functionality. I mentioned the web forums. You have to check those just to see what the experience of people who are testing these devices on Ubuntu Touch, just to get a sense of how well they will work on your device. Another thing here is that there are features that I have on here, like there's a screen mirroring feature in the settings that is here, but it's not on the Nexus 7. The Nexus 7 is listed as a legacy device, so I'm not sure how long this is going to be supported. Nexus 5 seems to be a core device. I'm assuming that's going to be supported continually going forward, even though they're like the same age. They both were released in 2013. And it's a shame because the Nexus 7 is a tablet, has a much greater screen real estate. So sometimes I like using the Nexus 7 more than the Nexus 5 just because I have access to that larger screen on here. There's another thing that you can do here it's called Convergence. And you can connect this to a monitor and a keyboard and mouse. And that will allow you to mirror this on the screen and use it as like a desktop operating system. So one thing that's not on the Nexus 5 in the drop-down settings, there's this desktop mode. And you go to desktop mode here. So it's in desktop mode now. And let me just show you what happens when this is in desktop mode. So I just opened up the calculator app, and when desktop mode, it opens it up as a window, just like it on a desktop operating system. And you see how I can move around the window just like you can do on a desktop. Where in the normal mobile mode, this calculator, just like you would expect on a mobile operating system, see how it takes up the entire screen? So you can connect this to a monitor, and it behaves like a desktop operating system then. So you can open up multiple windows. Let's see if we can see how I have the Morph browser open there and the calculator here. And so that's another thing you can do here. See if we can open up the music app. So you can open up multiple windows here, and it would act like a desktop operating system. I think one thing that's kind of similar to this is like Samsung. They have that DeX thing where you can utilize the mobile operating system as like a desktop operating system. So that's similar to this, although I think this is more baked in than DeX is as far as how it works. At least from what I see, I never used a Samsung phone. I never used DeX, so I'm pretty ignorant of a lot of things. But I have watched some videos about it online, and there's a great demo video of someone utilizing Ubuntu Touch as a desktop, and it seems to be fairly functional. So that's another thing you can do with this, is just use it as a desktop operating system. I think that would be really cool if you were a Ubuntu Touch user. This is like the only thing you were using, that you're like a Ubuntu Touch power user and you only use this as your main device and you also use it as your main desktop. That would be interesting to see how far you can take that. I don't know if I'm willing to be that hardcore, but hey, it's out there if you want to do it. All right, so this video is getting long enough. I just wanted to introduce this operating system. Who knows, I might bring it back for another video. But yeah, this is Digital Wandering. Thank you for watching and signing off.